It goes without saying that the World Cup final is football's ultimate occasion. It's the match the whole planet is watching, with the biggest prize in the game up for grabs. July 9th, 2006 in Berlin was no exception. But for all the star players on show that night, all eyes are on one man and one man only, Zinedine Zidane. One of the greatest players of his generation would take to the field one last time, captain his country as they look to win the most important trophy in sport and bow out in the most spectacular fashion of all. Initially, it looked as though France wouldn't even qualify for the tournament at all.
He drew twice against Israel, he drew against Ireland, against Switzerland.
We had a lack of leadership, and the coach and Raymond Domenech talked with Zizou, and he told him to come back because he needs leadership.
Along with 1998 World Cup winning heroes Lilian Thuram, Vicente Lizarazu and Marcel Desailly, Zidane came out of international retirement to help Les Bleus seal their place at Germany 2006.
Coming back and saying, I'm doing this to play my last World Cup, well, nobody was really going to let him down in a way. So he gave a major psychological boost and also a technical boost. I mean, he was the real boss on the pitch.
Zidane is a visionary player and is an incredible interpreter of this job.
The talismanic playmaker was made captain and almost single-handedly dragged Raymond Domenech's previously shaky-looking side all the way to the final with sensational individual displays against Brazil and Portugal in the knockout rounds.
Producing these amazing masterclasses against Spain, against Brazil, which is probably the best individual performance I've seen of a football player.
He was awarded the Golden Ball for best player at the tournament before the final, but nobody could have known just how much of the story was still yet to unfold.
The great thing was for Italy to be in a final after a really complicated year in domestic football, because we had a betting scandal called Calciopoli.
In May 2006, the Italian police uncovered a coordination of game rigging between some of Italy's top clubs. This scandal left the country's image in a dubious state. The match started in as dramatic fashion as you'd hope to see. Marco Materazzi's clumsy challenge on Florent Malouda inside 10 minutes handed France a penalty and a golden chance to make the perfect start to the final. Zidane took it and looked to have overdone his pitching wedge of a Panenka, time standing still as the ball clipped back off the underside of the bar and eventually over the line.
When the ball came down and you didn't even know if it was in or not, so people froze, and then it was just a major burst of happiness, really.
It's a proof of food and of huge talent.
Materazzi redeemed himself before the halfway stage of the first half though, rising highest to head home an Andrea Pirlo corner and equalise for Italy. By the end of the match, the two goal scorers would be the only names on everyone's lips, but not for reasons anyone could have predicted. With the score level at 1-1 after a surprisingly open 90 minutes, the game went to extra time. In the 109th minute, Materazzi and Zidane began talking on the edge of the Italian box.
Materazzi was just a defender of Inter Milan, which was at the time the team that took advantage the most from Calciopoli.
Being an AC Milan fan, I've witnessed Materazzi's attitude in a lot of games, and everyone knew that he wasn't a nice guy.
Exactly what was said still remains somewhat unclear, but we all know what happened next. Inexplicably, Zidane, the embodiment of calmness and class on the pitch, headbutted the Italian centre-back in the chest, sending him crashing to the floor. Most headbutts are spontaneous, something that just happens, almost instinctively, when two players are already in each other's faces, but this one was entirely calculated. Horacio Elizondo had no choice but to produce a red card and ensure that Zidane's final act in a sport he had played with such beauty and served with such distinction would be one of shocking, premeditated violence and ultimately led to Italy winning the World Cup on penalties. Later, Zidane went on to say, "If you look at the 14 red cards I had in my career, 12 of them were a result of provocation. This isn't a justification, this isn't an excuse, but my passion, temper and blood made me react." All great tragic heroes have a fatal flaw, and this was Zidane's. A narrative that football likes to weave is that of a player who exists on the edge, consumed with fire and passion that translate to greatness on the pitch, but also suffer from occasional bouts of hot-headed madness. This is one such moment, and it was pure theatre. Materazzi, the ultimate antagonist with form for provocation, exploited Zidane's weakness by insulting his sister, and the midfielder fell for the bait, hook, line and sinker, with devastating consequences.
It was surreal, it was tragic. I mean, I think even now every French football fan remembers Thierry Gilardi. He was the French commentator, and his comments live on TV were, "No, not that Zinedine, not that, not after everything you've achieved."
Pas ça, Zinedine. Oh non, oh non, pas ça. Pas aujourd'hui, pas maintenant, pas après tout ce que tu as fait.
It's impossible to overstate just how otherworldly the whole thing felt. A man at the apex of world football, known for the beauty of his play, committing such a primal act of aggression and losing his head so badly. Zidane had gone from being on the verge of possibly delivering a second World Cup for his country and complete footballing immortality to, in some people's eyes, tarnishing his reputation forever.
C'est la personnalité la plus aimée de France.
Why did he do that in his last match?
Watching the almost surreal images of Zidane after the headbutt, contemplating his actions, waiting for the red card and about to leave the pitch for the last time, you can almost see his whole career flashing before his eyes. The French media turned on Zizou, with Le Figaro calling the headbutt odious, while L'Équipe asked how he could ever be considered a role model after what he had done. The public were far more sympathetic though, with polls carried out in the immediate aftermath of the incident showing that 61% of French people had already forgiven him for his actions, while 52% said they understood them. But while the French wept, Italy rejoiced. For some, it was a blight on their victory.
I would have preferred to win a match without Zidane's red card.
Revenge over France was sweet after losing out to them in the final of Euro 2000, especially with David Trezeguet, who scored the winner that day, missing the crucial penalty in the shootout. The big question is just how much of an impact the headbutt had on Zidane's legacy. Ultimately, it's a subjective thing. While some see it as their defining image of the midfielder, others look past it and remember the many, many moments of pure inspiration on the pitch. What's certain is that it did give us one huge last piece of insight into the man himself as he walked off the Olympia Stadion turf past the World Cup trophy. His last game had turned into a microcosm of his career. Unapologetic genius, madness, creativity and beautiful chaos, all carried out with an unmistakable Frenchness.